3 weeks. Just 3 damn weeks. That's how long the illusion lasted. Not even a full month after the vows, the rings, the speeches about forever and always. I had barely unpacked all our wedding gifts. Her dress still hung in our closet, untouched since that perfect day. And already she was in someone else's bed. No warning. No fights. No signs. Just betrayal. I remember the moment I knew something was off. We were watching TV, some dumb comedy she used to love, and she laughed at a joke, not the joke itself, but too hard, too forced. Her eyes darted toward her phone on the coffee table like she was waiting for something better than this. Better than me. The next day she came home late. Client meeting ran long, she said, kissing me on the cheek. I could smell a different cologne on her, not mine. Expensive. Musky. Masculine. I wanted to believe it was her boss. Or a coworker. Maybe just an accident. But something twisted in my gut. Something ancient and primal. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow, taunting circles. Her back was to me. Her breathing steady. Peaceful. Like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't already started drifting away. We had just gotten married. My mind replayed the honeymoon, the beaches, the laughter, the long nights tangled in sheets. She said she'd never been happier. I believed her. God, I was such a fool. I didn't want to spy. I really didn't. But by the end of that week, I cracked. Something felt too wrong. Too rehearsed. She was dressing nicer for work. Taking longer showers. Always keeping her phone face down. So I checked her iPad. She never logged out of anything. The messages hit me like a truck. They weren't even trying to hide it. Not some sleazy affair, no. This was orchestrated. Deliberate. Methodical. She called him D. Said she couldn't stop thinking about his hands. Said being with me was safe, but he made her feel alive. Alive. She used to say that about me. There were pictures. Hotel receipts. Even a damn Spotify playlist they shared, full of sultry, late-night songs I'd never heard her play before. I closed the iPad. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just cheating. It was a whole parallel life. And I had no idea. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. For 3 days, I walked around like a ghost in my own home, watching her every move, analyzing every word, wondering how much of our life together had been real. She'd still kiss me goodbye in the mornings, still ask if I wanted anything from the store, still curl up next to me on the couch at night, and yet I knew. I knew what she was doing when she said she had back-to-back meetings, when she texted working late tonight, when she came home with her hair freshly combed but no makeup left on her face. I had seen the messages. I had read the way she talked about me like I was some placeholder. Some safe investment. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was a cover story. The worst part wasn't even the sex. It was the intimacy. The small, tender things she gave him that used to be mine. The way she'd talk about her day. Her insecurities. Her favorite wine. I saw photos of them together at some rooftop bar, her hand on his chest, her head thrown back in laughter. That wasn't just a fling. That was something deeper. Something she had chosen to nurture while telling me she loved me. I started noticing the way she pulled away when I touched her. Subtle. Like her body flinched before her mind could catch up. She stopped looking me in the eyes when she said, "I love you." Her smile, it had become automated, a muscle memory. And still, she never suspected I knew. I started planning. Not for revenge. Not yet. I needed to understand why. I needed answers. So I did what any broken man might do when the walls start caving in. I followed her. It was a Thursday. She left the house around 6:30 p.m., dressed in that green blouse I'd bought her for our anniversary. Said she had a late client dinner. I waited 15 minutes, then got in my car and followed from a distance. Heart pounding. Palm sweating. The city looked different through the windshield that night, colder, sharper, like every streetlight was a spotlight exposing my failure. She didn't go to any restaurant. She didn't go anywhere near downtown. She drove straight to a high-rise condo on the west side, upscale, with valet parking and a private elevator. I parked across the street and watched her walk inside without hesitation. No hesitation. Like she belonged there. I sat in my car for 2 hours staring at the building. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. I just sat, frozen in a moment I never asked for, trying to breathe through the weight of what I had just witnessed. She wasn't cheating. She was living a second life. That night, I didn't go home. I couldn't walk back into our apartment and pretend like nothing had happened. I couldn't face her soft lies, her easy smile, her voice saying, "How was your day?" as if she hadn't just spent hours wrapped up in someone else's world. So I drove. Aimlessly. Miles and miles of empty roads and broken thoughts. I ended up at an old diner off the highway, the kind of place where no one asks questions, where the coffee's burnt and the silence is forgiving. I sat in a booth by the window, watching rain smear the glass like tears I couldn't shed. All I kept thinking was, how long has this been going on? Did she fall out of love with me before the wedding? Or was the wedding just part of the performance, a way to secure the life she wanted while still keeping a back door open to something wilder, more thrilling? I thought about our vows. How her voice trembled when she promised to be faithful. How she looked me in the eyes and whispered, "You're my forever." God, she was convincing. I would have bet my life on her love. In a way, I guess I did. The waitress brought me a refill and I barely noticed. My phone buzzed. It was her. A text, "Hey babe, heading home. Long dinner. Miss you." I stared at those words. Miss you. What a joke. Did she send him the same message after she left his place? Did she smile at her phone, imagining me clueless and waiting? Was she proud of how well she balanced her lives? I didn't respond. I just sat there, the screen glowing in my hand, thinking about how easily trust can be destroyed. How someone can share your bed, your meals, your most vulnerable moments, and still lie straight to your face without flinching. And maybe that's what hurt the most. Not the infidelity itself, but how effortless it was for her to deceive me. No guilt. No hesitation. Just clean, calculated betrayal. By the time I finally drove home, it was past midnight. The apartment was dark. She was asleep, curled up on her side of the bed, one hand resting on my pillow like it belonged there. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching her breathe. I used to find that peaceful. Now it made my stomach turn. I didn't wake her. I just got into bed, turned away, and stared at the wall, wide awake, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning was a test I didn't know I was taking. She moved through our home like nothing had changed. She brewed coffee, hummed softly to herself, even kissed me on the cheek and asked if I wanted eggs. And I, like the pathetic shell of a man I'd become, nodded. Smiled. Played the part. It was surreal, like I had been cast in a film about my own life, but the script had been rewritten and no one bothered to tell me. She wore one of my shirts, an old, faded thing she always said made her feel close to me. It used to warm my heart. Now it just felt like mockery. She laughed at something on her phone and flashed the screen at me, a meme, something dumb, something couples shared when they were still in love. My stomach twisted. I couldn't stop imagining him. The man who wasn't me. The man who had seen her naked more recently than I had. The man who, at that very moment, might still be sleeping with the scent of her on his skin. I went to work, but I wasn't really there. My body was present, but my mind was trapped in that damn condo on the west side, replaying every minute she spent there. I wondered if they had inside jokes. If he knew things about her I didn't. If she laughed differently with him. Did he know she hated cilantro? That she slept with one sock on? That she bit her lip when she was nervous, but only on the right side? I used to think I knew her better than anyone. But now I realized there were pieces of her I would never touch again. I started keeping notes. Every time she lied. Every excuse. Every slip. I needed evidence. Not for a fight, for closure. For truth. Because what she'd done wasn't just betrayal. It was rewriting our history. I couldn't stand the thought of living in a reality where everything was fake. I needed something concrete. Something real to hold on to. A week passed. Then, too, she kept up the act. I watched her rehearse her life with me like a role in a play, the wife, the partner, the doting newlywed. And all the while, I waited for the mask to slip. It didn't. Not once. Her performance was flawless. Terrifyingly flawless. Until one night, she came home with a faint bruise on her neck. She tried to cover it with makeup. Badly. When she leaned in to kiss me, I pulled back slightly and stared at it. Her smile faltered just for a split second. But that was all I needed. Confirmation. She wasn't just cheating. She had stopped caring if I noticed. That bruise changed everything. It wasn't just physical proof. It was emotional confirmation that she no longer feared the consequences. That she no longer respected me enough to even hide the evidence properly. She had moved past secrecy into something darker, indifference. And that, more than the lies, more than the affair itself, gutted me. I realized then that I wasn't even her second choice. I was just background noise. A placeholder. A prop in the life she presented to the world while her real self existed elsewhere. I watched her that night, the way she walked around the kitchen humming some pop song, the way she sipped her wine without a care in the world. She didn't ask me how my day was. She didn't even notice how quiet I had become. And maybe that was the loudest truth of all, I had become invisible in my own marriage. Later, when she went to shower, I sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the closed bathroom door. I could hear the water running, the sound echoing like a countdown in my chest. My heart wasn't broken anymore. It was numb. Hollowed out. There was nothing left to shatter. I opened her nightstand drawer. I had never done that before, out of respect or naivety, or both. Inside, I found a small black box I didn't recognize. Inside it, a second phone. Sleek. Locked. But I didn't need to open it to know what it was for. That burner wasn't for emergencies. It was for him. For D. She had gone full double life. I put everything back exactly as I found it. Closed the drawer. Sat in silence. My hands were calm now, steady. The panic was gone. What remained was something colder. Clearer. A realization I didn't need more proof. I didn't need confrontation. What I needed was a plan. Because I couldn't stay. Not another day. Not another lie. Not another fake morning where I played the role of husband while she played the role of innocent. She wasn't innocent. And I wasn't a fool anymore. That night, while she slept, I made a list. Not of what she had done, I already knew too much of that, but of what I needed to do next. Bank accounts. Lease agreement. My name on the furniture receipts. Passwords to the joint accounts. Legal consultations. Quiet exits. She had betrayed me with precision. Now I would leave her with the same. Not out of revenge. Out of necessity. Out of self-respect. Out of survival. The days that followed felt like walking on broken glass, every step painful, every moment a reminder of what I was preparing to leave behind. But the strange part was how calm I felt. There was no more guessing, no more questioning. I had crossed the threshold where love dies and clarity takes over. And in that brutal clarity, I found purpose. I began to detach piece by piece, silently peeling myself out of the life we had built together. I stopped initiating conversations. I stopped asking where she was going or when she'd be home. I stopped reaching for her in bed. She didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did and simply didn't care. Either way, the silence between us thickened, stretched, hardened into something irreversible. A quiet war. At work, I met with a lawyer. Told him everything. Left out no detail. He listened without flinching, nodding as if the story, my heartbreak, was just another file in his drawer. And maybe it was. Maybe betrayal is more common than we like to admit. By the end of that meeting, I had a plan. I knew how to walk away clean. I just needed to wait. Wait for the right moment, the right fracture, the final, undeniable proof that I wasn't abandoning something salvageable but escaping a slow, venomous death. And that moment came faster than I expected. One night, she came home drunk. Not tipsy. Sloppy. Her makeup was smudged, her heels dangling from her fingers. She stumbled through the door, laughing to herself, mumbling something about girls' night as she dropped her purse on the floor. I helped her to the couch, more out of habit than care. And as she slumped down, her phone slid from her coat pocket and landed face up beside me. I didn't mean to look, but I did. The screen was still lit. A message from a contact saved as Dylan, work, still taste you on my lips. Can't stop thinking about tonight. Don't make me wait too long. That was it. Not because I didn't already know. Not because it hurt more than the others. But because of her expression. When she realized I'd seen it, when our eyes locked, she didn't look shocked. Or sorry. Or scared. She looked relieved. As if the act was finally over. As if she was tired of pretending to. And in that moment, without raising my voice, without saying a word, I stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. I didn't even look back. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just drove. Through the empty streets, past sleeping neighborhoods and glowing convenience stores until the city faded into silence and I found myself at a cheap roadside motel. The kind of place where no one asks for a reason, just a name and a card. I paid for a week in cash, took the key, and locked myself inside. The room smelled like bleach and old cigarettes, but it was mine. No lies, no masks. Just four stained walls and the sound of my own breathing. That first night alone was brutal. Not because I missed her, but because I didn't. What I missed was the illusion, the comfort of not knowing, the warmth of a love I believed in, even if it never really existed. I lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, replaying everything, every moment, every lie she told, every time I ignored my instincts because I loved her too much to believe she could be that cruel. But she was. And now the silence felt cleaner than her voice ever had. In the days that followed, I began untangling the knots. I called my lawyer, set meetings, transferred money to a separate account. I changed passwords, redirected mail, canceled shared subscriptions, all the small things that make up a life together. One by one, I erased our connection like deleting files from a corrupted drive. She called me once. Just once. I didn't answer. She didn't leave a message. That told me everything I needed to know. She didn't want me back. She wanted control. The narrative. The image. The neat, polished ending where she wasn't the villain. But I wouldn't give her that. I wouldn't give her anything else. One afternoon, I stopped by the apartment to grab the last of my things. I waited until I knew she'd be gone. She had started working late, again. Though now I knew what that really meant. The place felt foreign. Cold. Her scent still lingered in the sheets, in the throw pillows, in the bathroom drawer where her perfume stood like a monument to her double life. I didn't touch any of it. I just packed my clothes, a few books, and the framed photo from our honeymoon. Not to keep, but to remind myself that even paradise can be built on a lie. Before I left, I stood in the living room and looked around one last time. This had been our home. Now it was just a crime scene, and I was finally ready to walk away from it. For good. I didn't tell anyone the full truth at first. When friends asked what happened, I kept it vague. It just didn't work out. Or we weren't who we thought we were. I couldn't bear the sympathy, the head tilts, the quiet murmurs of "I'm so sorry" that came with exposing the betrayal. Because deep down I still felt ashamed. Not of what she had done, but of how blind I had been. How easily I had let love become a disguise. How thoroughly I had ignored the signs, convinced myself that doubt was disloyalty. But the shame began to fade with distance. There's a strange clarity that comes from solitude. You start to see the relationship for what it really was, not what you wanted it to be. And slowly the memories begin to shift. The laughter sounds more forced. The kisses feel colder in hindsight. The silences grow heavier. You realize that even when you thought you were happy, she was already leaving in small, silent ways. I began rebuilding my life from the inside out. Not with grand gestures or sudden transformations, but in quiet, consistent acts of self-respect. I started cooking for one. I walked more. I went to a therapist and, for the first time, said it out loud. My wife cheated on me. It didn't break me to admit it. Freed me. Gave shape to the storm inside me. Gave it a name, a boundary, a beginning, and eventually an end. One evening, months later, I ran into someone who had been at our wedding. A cousin of hers, distant but kind. She looked surprised to see me, asked how I was doing. I gave her the short version. She just nodded, then said something that caught me off guard. I always wondered how long she could keep it up. I blinked. Keep what up? The act, she said, shrugging. She's always needed more. You know? Tension. Drama. Like, love wasn't enough. It had to come with an audience. It hit me then I hadn't been loved. I'd been admired for what I could provide. Stability, consistency, safety. But when the shine of the wedding wore off, when the spotlight dimmed, she craved chaos again. And she found it in someone willing to offer it no matter the cost. That conversation didn't hurt. It healed. It reminded me that some people don't want peace, they want performance. And I was never meant to be part of her act. The divorce was uneventful. No courtroom drama. No tearful apologies. No desperate pleas to reconcile. Just paperwork. Cold signatures. Lawyers speaking in calm, emotionless tones as they divided what remained of a shared life. Furniture. Dishes. The apartment lease. I didn't fight for anything, not because I didn't care, but because none of it meant anything anymore. You can't fight for symbols when the substance is already gone. She looked at me only once during the final meeting. Her eyes searched mine, maybe for guilt, maybe for anger, maybe just for proof that I still felt something. But I gave her nothing, not a word, not a flicker, because I had already grieved the loss of our marriage, not in the office of some attorney, but alone in a motel room where I first realized I was just a placeholder in her narrative. After everything was finalized, I walked out into the sunlight and felt something strange, a lightness. Not joy, not relief, something quieter, something cleaner. The absence of weight, like I had been carrying a body that no longer belonged to me and someone had finally lifted it from my shoulders. I didn't hate her, and that surprised me. I thought I would. I thought I'd want revenge or justice or even just an apology. But all I wanted now was distance. To put miles between me and the version of myself that thought love could survive without honesty. Without reciprocity. Without respect. I started traveling. Nothing extravagant. Just small towns, quiet places. I wrote in notebooks. I deleted photos. I unsubscribed from her world, every thread, every memory, every what if. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped wondering if she missed me. I stopped needing her to suffer in order to validate my own pain. And one morning, in a tiny coastal town with more seagulls than people, I woke up and realized I had made it through. Not untouched, but not destroyed either. She had taken so much from me. My trust. My certainty. My belief in promises. But what remained, what she couldn't touch, was my will to rebuild. To start again. Not in spite of the betrayal, but because of it. Time has a way of softening sharp edges. The memories that once burned now flicker like distant campfires, still warm, but no longer dangerous. I think of her sometimes, not with anger, but with a strange kind of detachment. Like watching a film I've seen too many times where I already know how it ends. She's no longer the villain in my story. She's just a character who was never meant to stay for the final chapters. I've learned things since then about love, about myself, about the delicate balance between holding on and letting go. Betrayal doesn't always come with screaming or slamming doors. Sometimes it arrives dressed as routine in the form of soft lies and forced smiles. Sometimes it sleeps beside you and kisses you goodnight, and you only see it clearly when you're far enough away to recognize the pattern. I don't regret marrying her. That might sound strange, but it's true. That experience taught me more than any success ever could. It taught me what I will never accept again. It taught me how to listen to the quiet voice inside that says, this doesn't feel right. Most importantly, it taught me that being alone is not the same as being lost, that solitude can be sacred when shared with your own truth. People say time heals all wounds. I disagree. Time just gives you the distance to do the healing yourself. And I did. Not quickly. Not easily. But completely. I built a new life. One rooted in honesty, in peace, in the slow, careful trust that comes after the storm. I met people who didn't want to use me or fix me or break me, just know me. I laughed again, deeply, without guilt. I began to love again, not because I needed to, but because I could. And maybe that's the real revenge. Not bitterness. Not rage. But becoming whole again, quietly, fully, on your own terms. Because in the end, she didn't break me. She just freed me from the lie I was too afraid to question. And now I live in the truth, scarred, yes, but stronger than I ever was before.